Hello, this is Mr. Henry, and welcome to lesson 4.9. We're going to write the equation of a line. The essential question says, how do I write the equation of a line in all of the forms? Depending on which class you're in, if you're about ready to take the keystones, you'll need to know all three forms, which would be, we'll talk about them in a second. If you are not going to take the keystones this year, if you're in 8th grade, you only need to know two of the forms. And we'll talk about the differences in a little bit, but I'm including all of them there because this lesson is very good for 8th grade and even 9th grade courses. So the warm-up is a type 1, and it says, write 2 lines about how to find the slope of a line from 2 points or from a graph. So we did that in the last lesson. So write 2 lines on how to find the slope of a line from 2 points or from a graph. Go ahead, pause the video. When you're ready, move on to the vocabulary, hit play, and we'll move on. Alright, so we have 3 vocab words here. These are the 3 forms of a line. Now, 8th grade students, you only need slope-intercept form and standard form. So I'll pull them out here so you can look at them. Slope-intercept form is the form y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Standard form is this form ax plus by equals c, where a and b are not 0. Okay, so to give an example of each of these with numbers instead of just all algebraic, if we have the formula y equals 3x plus 5, that is slope-intercept form, where this number is the slope, this number is the y-intercept. Here, standard form, an example could be 2x minus 6y equals 12, whatever. And we're going to find out a little bit later on that slope-intercept form is the most useful of the 3 forms. This form is not really that great. I mean, we can graph from this form, but it's not so easy. Graphing from slope-intercept form is very easy, and if you have a graph given to you as a picture, to write the equation, usually the best way is slope-intercept form. Okay, so these are the 2 forms that 8th grade students need. Students who are going to take the keystones, or 9th grade students, you will need the next one. This is called point-slope form. Now, you can look at it and you say, well, that thing's kind of ugly. Yeah, it is. But point-slope form actually does have its uses. And 8th grade students, you can listen to this too, because this other form is useful. It's just one more thing you kind of have to remember, but it does have its uses, specifically to write the equation of a line if you do not have an intercept. If you are given 2 points, or if you're given a slope and a point, this point-slope form does kind of come in handy. And the way you write this equation would be like y minus 4 equals 3 times x plus 2, where this is the slope, and this guy come from a point. Okay, so throughout the lesson, I'm going to be doing all 3 forms. I'm going to show some ways of 2 different ways. Actually, I'll just keep going here. So write the equation in all the forms. So 8th grade students, your forms would be slope-intercept form and standard form. Keystone students, or 9th grade students, your forms would be all 3. Point, slope, slope-intercept, standard. So right here it says, well, the information they're giving us here, they are giving us a point and a slope. So let's start with 8th grade students. If you're given a point and a slope, the very first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to write the equation in slope-intercept form. That is going to be your number 1 goal. So first, we have a slope given to us. That's awesome. You must always have slope. You cannot write the equation of any line without slope. So we have a slope given to us. So here we go. Y equals mx plus b. Write down the formula. If you want that thing to happen, you're writing down your goal. I want my equation to look like that. So now, we're going to plug in what we know. We know slope is 3. It tells us right here, m is 3. That's the slope of this line. That's how slanty the line is. What it's not telling us are these other pieces. Well, not directly. So our goal here, what we would like, our final answer, we want something that looks like, play pretend, y equals 3x plus 5. I don't know if that's the right number. Probably not. But that's what we want. So we want that thing right there. We want the b to be a number. The way we do this is actually pretty simple. We need to make this x and this y numbers. So in the information they give us, do they give us an x and a y? Yeah, right there. This and this. These are x, y coordinates of a point. That point is on that line, which means if I plug in -2 for x, here it is, and -8 for y, I'm going to figure out what this missing piece is. Now we can go way back to lesson 4.2, and we can solve this multi-step equation with one variable, and we can get ourselves an answer. I can find out what b is. So we multiply. 3 times -2 is -6. To get the variable by itself, I'm going to add 6 to both sides. So this is easy stuff now. We get -2. So look what we have here. We have a slope, check. We have the intercept, check. So we can write the equation of this line in slope-intercept form. Here it is. Y equals 3x, that's this 3, that's the slope, minus 2. That's the intercept right there. This is our equation in slope-intercept form. Make sure it doesn't look like a 21. Y equals 3x minus 2. Now, that's one form. We also need to figure out what this is in standard form. So to go to standard form, all we really have to do to get from slope-intercept form to standard form is we have to make this x piece go on the other side of the equal sign, because standard form looks like this. ax plus by equals c. So if we can get our x and y on the same side of the equal sign, and the constant, the thing without a variable, on the other side, we're done. So check this out. Minus 3x minus 3x. I'm subtracting 3x from here to make this piece go away. My result would be -3x plus y, that's him, equals -2. This is my answer in standard form. So what we have is or what we did, I should say, is summarize the problem. Refresher through our minds. They gave us a slope and a point. We took the slope and the point and we plugged it in to our slope-intercept form. That's this. This is slope-intercept form. We know it's slope-intercept form because it takes a slope and the y-intercept. So once we plugged in the slope for the slope, the x and y for the x and y, we were left with one variable, this b. We then solved the equation and found out that b was -2. Once we knew the slope and the intercept, all we had to do is we substituted them back into our formula. Here it is. Y equals 3x minus 2. Slope from here intercept from there. So this is slope-intercept form done. The other goal was to go to point-slope form. I'm sorry, not point-slope, standard form. To get to standard form, we need the x's and y's on one side of the equal sign and the constants on the other. So if we moved the x to the other side of the equal sign, we got negative 3x plus y equals negative 2. That was our answer in standard form. Now, that is how I would recommend 8th grade students doing this problem. The folks who don't need to know point-slope form. And for the folks who do know or do need to know point-slope form, it's still a good process. I like that. That's the method I would personally do. If you gave me that question, you said write that thing in standard form or write that thing in slope-intercept form, that is exactly what I would do because I find that process to be quite a bit easier. Now, letter B here, I'm going to show how the 9th grade students should do this. 8th grade students, you can follow along with us. You can do the problem the way we're going to do it, or if you feel confident and you want to try it the way we did in letter A, do it. So, speaking to the 9th grade students out there, the ones who are going to be taking the keystones here, the ones who need to know point-slope form, what you're going to do is point-slope form is designed to take in a point and a slope and kind of cut down the work a little bit. So check this out. The only bad part about it is it's another stupid, ugly equation you have to memorize. But it's on the keystone formula sheet. It's not on the 8th grade formula sheet, though. So, formula. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. That is the formula for point-slope form. It's ugly. M is the same. M is the slope that we are given. You must always have slope to write the equation of a line. So we're going to plug in our slope. Now, the y stays the y, the x stays the x. The point you plug in go in for the y1 and the x1. So y1 is 1, so y minus 1. Plugging that in. X minus the x1 is 1. So all I've done so far, if I had to describe my steps, from here I wrote down formula. Here I substitute. I'm just plugging in what they gave us in the problem into the formula. Now, I don't know, simplify, solve, solve I'll call it. It's going to take 2 steps here. First thing I'm going to do is we're now going to turn this junk into slope-intercept form. It takes 2 steps. First things first, distributive property. See these parentheses? Don't like them, don't need them, want to get rid of them. How do we do that? Distribute. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. Other side stays the same. We distributed. We're simplifying. That guy's almost slope-intercept form. The difference is this is a y minus 1 here. We don't want a minus 1 here. So if I make this a plus 1 to cancel him out, y equals negative 4x plus 5. There's our equation in slope-intercept form. Now, 8th graders, you might be thinking to yourself, Mr. Henry, that was only 4 steps, and the other way took like 7 or 8 steps. Why don't I just do this way instead? Hey, I'm not going to stop you. You can do that way if you want, if you choose to. I'm telling you that I personally don't like it, It's another formula you have to remember, and yes, you must remember that formula if you're going to use it, because this formula, this point slope form, is not on the 8th grade formula sheet. It's not. Slope intercept form and standard form are y equals mx plus b, and this ax plus by equals c. They're on the 8th grade formula sheet. So if you're trying to do one of these problems and you get all messed up and you forget what's going on, you can look back at the formula sheet and look at the formula given to you. And if you know this method that we did here in example A, substitute, substitute, solve, plug it in, done, then you're good. And if you're trying to learn this new method, which although you might find it simpler and easier, it's more stuff to remember, then I'm not going to stop you. Now, Algebra B people, the Keystone people, the 9th graders, we still need to do standard form. To get from slope intercept form to standard form is going to be the same process. And 8th graders, you should know this as well because we did it over there. All you really need to do is get the x's and y's on one side of the equal sign. So if I can get this negative 4x, or if I could get rid of the negative 4x from this side and move it to the other side, that would be standard form because my x's and y's would be on one side of the equal sign. So here I go. Add 4x, add 4x. And we get 4x, whoa, that's an x, plus y equals 5. So here we have standard form. Here we have slope intercept form. And here we have point slope form. So those are all 3 forms if you needed them, 9th graders, Keystoners. If you don't need them, then if you only need slope intercept form and standard form, here they are. And algebra, or 8th graders, here is your slope intercept form, SI form. There is your standard form. And for you 9th graders, you want your point slope form? Check this out. We can do it without doing any more work, really. Formula. And 8th graders, maybe you want to plug your ears and go la 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 for a little bit. Plug in your slope. Plug in your point. Now, see how that's a -2? It's x minus the point. So x minus -2, it's kind of ugly, and y minus -8, which is kind of ugly. So if we simplify, a minus a negative, it's the same thing as plus. So that's x plus 2, y plus 8. Bada bing, bada boom. There is point slope form. All right. So throughout this lesson, I'm going to kind of jump back and forth between the 2 different methods because I want to be fair for everybody, but I'm going to mostly stick to this method like I did in letter A because that is my preferred method. That's the way that I would do this. That's the way that I recommend you to do this. I don't like point slope form. I think it's pretty stupid for the most part. It's an extra formula that's pretty ugly to remember. And yeah, it can save a couple seconds here or there, but I'd rather stick to the tried and true slope intercept form because honestly, that's the form you're going to see probably 85% of the time. So if I had to break it down, slope intercept form, you're going to see 85%. Standard form, you're going to see about 10%. And being the awesome mathematicians we are, point slope form, maybe 5%. You're almost never going to see it. It's there occasionally, but it's not something you're going to have to really deal with a whole lot. Okay? So here's what I want you to do. Pause the video, do letter C right now. When you're ready to continue, hit play, and we'll go through it together. Alrighty, so here we go. Let's write the equation of this line that goes through that point with that slope in all three forms. Or, yeah, we'll do all three, but we're going to stick with the first method. So I want the formula y equals mx plus b. Please write down the formulas. It makes your life so much easier. It makes your work so much simpler. You can follow your own work. Other people can follow your work. Substitute. We know the slope is 4. Says so right here. X value is -3. Y value is 1. We don't know the y-intercept because it doesn't tell us that. So I wrote down the formula. I substituted. Now I do just some very simple solves. Multiply. -12. Get the b by itself, so you add 12 to both sides. B equals 13. So now what I have is I have my slope from here, my intercept from there. So my formula in slope-intercept form is y equals 4x plus 13. Done. Slope-intercept form. And that is a 13, not a b. There. Now, one form done. Slope-intercept form. Awesome. We need to get to standard form. So to go to standard form, all we need to do is move this x, 4x I should say, to the other side of the equal sign. Get the x's and y's together. Standard form looks like ax plus by equals c. X's and y's are together. The thing without the variables on the other side of the equal sign. So if we move this 4x to the other side of the equal sign, the x and the y's will be together and happy over here, and the 13 will be all by its lonesome over there. So let's do that. To move the 4x over, we need to subtract it on both sides, giving us -4x plus y, because you still have this positive y over here, equals 13. This is our answer in standard form. And for you Keystoners that need, or 9th graders that need point-slope form, we can do that. Point-slope form looks like y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Oh, didn't mean that little blue line. So, y minus the y value, 1, equals m, which is slope, times x minus the x value. So x minus -3, and minus a negative we turn into a plus, and we're donezies. That is point-slope form. So right now, I wrote the equation in all three forms. Some of you folks only need 2, others will need all 3, but there's a method that I would use. That is how I would do the problem. So pretty much the rest of the lesson is going to be practice of this exact same thing over and over and over again, but we're going to get slightly different bits of information. So in these first 3 problems, they gave us a point and a slope. They're not always going to be so generous. In the next problem, or a couple problems, they give us 2 points. That's a problem. You cannot find the equation of a line without slope. It's impossible to do. So the first thing you need to do to write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form or standard form or point-slope form, you must have slope. So let's use our thinking brains. We can use our formula sheets as well. Hop back, think back, slope. Gotta find slope. Slope formula is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And this is x, y, x, y. That's just how the points are. The first number is the x coordinate. I'm going to call this guy point number 1, point number 1. And this is point number 2, so it's x2 and y2. So if I just substitute now my junk into the formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 equals, now I simplify, 1 minus 4 is negative 3, 2 minus 6 is negative 4, and I simplify, positive 3/4. Now, we have slope, and we have points. We can do all the wonderful things we did before to get our equation in slope-intercept form, and standard form, and point-slope form. We do the exact same thing we did in the last 3 problems now. So all this did by giving us 2 points is add one extra little step of we had to find the slope first. So let's do this. I'm trying to decide where I want to put my work. I'll put the work over here, and I'll put the answers over here. So, formula. Y equals mx plus b. Plug in what you know. Well, we know the slope is 3/4. Yeah, that might be ugly for some of you. That's okay. So, what point do you pick? Honestly, doesn't matter. You pick either point. Personally, me, if I had the option of 2 points, I'll pick the one that either has no negatives, because I don't like dealing with negatives if I don't have to. So if there's no negatives, I'll pick that point. Or the smaller numbers, because usually smaller numbers are easier to do the math with. That's it. I mean, that's my whole reason behind why I'd pick one point over another. So here, none of them are negative. These guys are smaller. I'll pick him. Makes no difference. You'll get the exact same answer if you pick the other point. It's the same line. So x value is 2, y value is 1. Okay, let's do some math. 3/4 times by 2 is 1.5. You don't have to take my word for it. You can use a calculator, but I'm right. And then I'm going to get the b by itself, so I subtract 1.5 to both sides. Whoa, 0.5. And b equals negative 0.5. So I have now a slope, I have an intercept, I have everything I need to write my equation in slope-intercept form. Y equals slope, intercept. Done. That's slope-intercept form. So that slope right there is how slanty the line is. And the intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. Alright, to make this into standard form, we're going to do the standard thing we've been doing the past couple problems and move the x from this side over to the y. So the x's and y's are together, and this poor negative 0.5 will be all by himself. So if we subtract 3/4 x on both sides, this piece down, we get negative 3/4 x plus y equals negative 0.5. This is our answer in standard form. And for you poor folks that need to do point-slope form, just remember point-slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, which, by the way, I don't think I ever learned about point-slope form until I started teaching this stuff. So when I was like 23 and out of college, I never knew about point-slope form, I don't think. Point-slope form. y minus the y value. Well, I'm going to pick the same point. I'm going to pick this guy because the numbers are smaller and they're both positive. So y minus 1 equals slope x minus the x value. Done. Point slope form. So there it is. We got slope intercept form. We got standard form. We got point slope form. We wrote the equation in all the forms we need. Reminder, 8th graders, you only need these. This is the bonus. This is the extra. This is what you need for the next year, 9th grade. Take the keystones. If you need that question a little bit longer, feel free to pause it. I need to move some of it out of the way because this letter B, he doesn't have much space to work. So I'm actually going to delete this entire... No, I'm not going to delete it, I guess. I'm going to go ahead and group it all together. Group. Group. And slide it out of the way. Oh, if I need it again, I can pull it out. Alright. Letter B. Same dealio. We got to find the slope. You cannot write the equation of a line without slope, so we're going to find the slope first. Formula for slope. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Don't take my word for it. Look at the formula sheet. You don't have to remember the formula if it's on the formula sheet. And actually, one of the cool things is you're not supposed to have to remember any formulas for the most part. Every formula that you need will be given to you on the formula sheet. Plug in what you know. Now, you do have to know where the stuff is, so you have to know that this is x1, y1, x2, y2. So 7 minus negative 2 over 5 minus 2 gives us, minus a negative is a plus, so that turns into 7 plus 2 is 9 over 4. He's not so pretty. Wait a second. 5 minus 2 is not 4. How about 3? That's prettier. So our slope is 3. Okie dokes. So now I'm going to do the same thing before. I'm going to do my work over here off to the side. I'm going to put my answers over here. I like that. That worked for me. So y equals mx plus b. Write down the formula. Slope is 3. Plug in what you know. So out of these 2 points, yeah, these numbers are smaller, but these guys are both positive. I'm going to pick the positive ones. So I'm going to use the x value of 5, the y value of 7. If you did this first point, hey, fine. Just make sure you keep that negative in your problem and carry it through. A lot of people mess up with their negatives. Multiply out, we get 15. Subtract 15 on both sides to get the variable by itself. And that gives us 8. Alright, so we have slope. Whoa, there's no that. We have y-intercept. So our formula in slope-intercept form is y equals 3x plus 8. Done. And our, let's see, standard form. The same thing. We're going to subtract 3x to both sides. We're going to get the x's and the y's together. So if I subtract 3x on both sides, we get negative 3x plus y equals 8. Eighth graders, you can stop here. Bonus. Point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I'm going to use the first point again because, or I'm sorry, the second point because they're both positive. So y minus the y value equals slope times x minus the x value. Alrighty? So there we have our equation in all the forms that we need. Some of you need 2, some of you need 3. Feel good? Try this one on your own. Go ahead, pause the video right now, do the problem. When you're ready to continue, hit play, and we'll go through it together. Okie dokies, here we go. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Do you folks notice how I write down the formulas every time? I've been doing this stuff for longer than most of you have probably been alive. Maybe not quite. Yeah, probably is true. And I still write down the formulas. You know why? Because it's good practice. I do it so that I don't forget the formula. It helps you remember. The more you say it, the more you hear it, the more you write it, the more senses you use on one topic, the better you're going to remember it. Let's see. x1, y1, x2, y2. So we've got 4 minus 0 over negative 2 minus 0. So when you subtract 0, you don't change anything. So this comes down to 4 over negative 2, which we can simplify. It's just negative 2. So there we have our slope. All right, work on one side and still on the other. Here we go. Y equals mx plus b. That's our goal. Plug in. Slope is negative 2. Gee. Which of these points do you think will be easier to plug in? 0, 0 or negative 2, 4? If you said 0, 0, you are correct. Negative 2 times 0 is 0. 0 plus b, or if you subtract 0 to both sides, I don't know how you want to think about this in your brain, but essentially, if you subtract 0, cool, 0 minus 0 is still 0. B is 0. So our formula in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, is that y equals negative 2x plus 0. Now, technically speaking, we would drop this plus 0. We would just write the formula as y equals negative 2x. It's still useful to think about this plus 0 being here, especially in a second when we go to standard form. But if I just said write the equation slope-intercept form, and if this is like a multiple choice test, you're not going to see an option of plus 0. This formula here would not be there. This bottom formula would be. So this bottom formula is the simplified version, the final version of this, okay? But if we're going to go to standard form and say we subtract 2x to both sides, because we would do that here to get to standard form, so we'd change to red, minus 2x minus 2x. And we get negative 2x plus y equals what? I mean, what do you get if you... Oh, wait a second. Wait a second. Add 2x. Because this 2x is already negative, so you have to add it to both sides. Mr. Henry. So we get 2x plus y equals what? Well, if you think about it from the top version, well, it'll just be a 0. Because if you got rid of this minus 2x from adding it to both sides, you'd still be left with a 0 here. From the simplified version, a negative 2 plus 2 is 0. You still have a 0 over there. It's just we don't see it. We don't write it. Form. Alright. Bonus time. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. I'm still going to use the 0, 0 point. Y minus 0 equals slope x minus 0. And we should probably simplify that as well. I don't know. I think you would probably leave it like that. Because you need to show the point. If you simplify it and you won't have the point anymore, it doesn't look like point slope form. So I think you'd actually leave it like that. Point slope form. because you want to see what the point is, and you want to see what the slope is. So yeah, I'd leave it like that. So a little reflection, or I think we're on the back of the note sheet now, or maybe on the bottom. It says, what pieces of information do you need to write the equation of the line in any form? So think about what we did in the past 6 problems. What pieces of information do you need to write the equation of a line in any form? Well, you need slope. You must have slope. If you do not have slope, you cannot write the equation of the line. You must have a point of some sort. The point could be a y-intercept, it could be an x-intercept, it could be just some random point. You must have a point. That's kind of it. That's it. That's all you really need. You need a slope and you need a point. Now, if they gave you 2 points, the first thing you need to do is you'd need to find the slope, and then using the slope and one of the points, then you can write your equations. Okay, let's get to some graphs now. So we're trying to do the same thing. We want to write the equation of the line in all the forms. So here we have a picture of an line. So to write the equation of the line, we're going to look for those same pieces of information. We need a slope and a point. Here we have a slope. So what I'm going to do to find the slope, just like we did before, is I'm going to look for these intersection points. I think they're actually officially called lattice points. I just saw this the other day. I think they're called lattice points, where the line goes right through the crisscrosses, the little grid. Like it misses here, it's not there, there. Oh, but right there, it goes right through like the bullseye. Boom, boom, boom. So we could skip ourselves a lot of work by counting boxes. What do I mean by counting boxes? Well, I could go through and say, okay, well, this is the point 0, 1, and this is the point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, and do the whole slope formula thing of like y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 and plug in the numbers and simplify. Or you go from this point here to this point here. How far up or down would you have to go? Well, you would go up 2 boxes. And then how far to the right do you go? Well, you'd have to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 boxes. So the slope of this line is up 2 over 5. That is the counting boxes method of finding slope. You find 2 points where the line goes right through the bullseyes, the lattice points. And you count how far up and how far over. The formula for slope, that y2 minus y1 stuff. I'm getting a little sloppy there. Really what this is doing is this is finding the change in y and a change in x. So we can do that by counting the boxes. So the change in y from one point to the other, it went up by 2. Look, from this point here to this point here, the y value went up by 2. The change in x, from this point here to this point here, the x value went up by 5. So our slope is 2/5. All right. Might have been a little long-winded, but I want to make sure I was perfectly clear with that. So the counting box method, we found the slope, 2/5. Do we have a point? Yeah, we actually have 3 of them. We have this point down here, this point here, and this point here. One of those 3 is the best point to use. Do you know which one it is? This one. We're going to use this point because that point is the y-intercept. And if we're trying to write our equation in slope-intercept form, we don't even have to go through all that other work of plugging in our slope and plugging in our point. There, let me show you. So I'm not hypothetical here. We don't even have to go through the work of like plugging in the slope and plugging in a point and doing all this stuff to find the intercept value, the b value, because the picture has it. So our slope is here. Our intercept, our y-intercept, is 1. Our line is crossing the y-axis at 1. So there's no legwork involved in this problem anymore. Now it's just straight to the answers. Formula. Y equals 2/5 x plus 1. That is our answer in slope-intercept form. Now we're doing the exact same work we did before to get the other forms. To get to standard form, we're going to subtract 2/5 x to both sides. And that gives us negative 2/5 x plus y equals 1. Bonus. Whoa, sorry about that. S-T-A-N-D-A-R-D, standard form. Now, to get to point slope form, formula is the same. It's the y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And we know the slope is 2/5. And you could use any of those points that you wanted. You could use this point, this point, this point. It really doesn't matter which one you pick. Personally, me, I'm still probably going to use the y-intercept because why not? So I'm going to use the point 0, 1. So the x value is 0, the y value is 1, and there's our answer in point slope form. Okay. So I was fairly long-winded in that problem. When I do the next problem, I'm not going to be so long-winded. I'm going to show you how simple it really is to write the equation from a graph. Okay. I'm not going to be quite as explicit in my details, but I'm still going to make sure I go through all this stuff. So here I go. So I know the things I want to find is I want to find slope, and I want to find the intercept. If I could find those 2 pieces, I'm golden. Well, right there is the y-intercept. That's right there is where the line is crossing the y-axis. This is the y-axis, this bold line right here. All right. So that is the point, or on the y-axis, that's at -1, -2, -3, -4. Okay. Now, slope. I just need to find 2 points and count the boxes between them. On my line, I have 3. So just pick any 2. So from here to there, slope is the change in y over the change in x. So from here to here, I would have to go down. You always go up or down first. You go down 1, 2, 3, 4. Down 4 over 1. Can you guess what the slope is going to be? Down 4 over 1, which is just -4. So this problem actually has the same slope and y-intercept. It's just coincidental. So now we can get to it. Formula, y equals mx plus b. Y equals -4 is the slope. We found that here. X and -4 is the intercept. there is our answer in slope-intercept form. To get to standard form, we're going to add 4x to both sides, giving us 4x plus y equals -4. That's this guy here. There we are in standard. And as a bonus, to get to point slope form, that's y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. I'm going to get y minus, which y value? I'm going to use the, yeah, sure. I'll use the y-intercept. So this is the point 0, -4. There. So I can see it from down here. So my y value is -4. Slope was -4. X minus the x value is 0. And the only thing I would do is I would just make this y minus -4 a plus, because minus a negative is the same thing as plus a positive. So there we go. There's our answer in point slope form. So hopefully you're seeing it's a lot easier, it's quicker to go from a graph to an equation. There's less algebra involved. You can get most of the information you need right from the picture, which is awesome. You just got to be able to decipher the picture. So here's one for you to try to decipher. So from this, write the equation of the line in all the forms. Pause the video, take your time, do it now. When you're ready to continue, hit play, and we'll go through it together. Alrighty-o. So, let's see. Slope and y-intercept, which is the b value. So right there is the y-intercept. That's where the line is crossing the y-axis. That is the y value of 1, 2, 3, 4. Slope. Get some points on here. You can pick any two you want and go from one to the next. So if I went up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, slope is 1/2. But here's an interesting thought. What if, play pretend you didn't see that one in the middle there, or that one. Maybe you only saw those two. What if you went from like here to there? You'd have up 2 over 4. Is that the same thing we had before? Is 1 over 2 the same as 2 over 4? Yeah, it's just a fraction. If you simplify 2/4, it still gives you 1/2. So even if you don't pick 2 points that are directly next to each other, the 2 consecutive lattice points, the points where the line goes to the crisscross thing, it still gives you the same slope. You just have to simplify the fraction is all. So it really doesn't even matter which 2 points you pick. Alright, so we have our slope, we have our intercept, so let's do it. Y equals mx plus b, y equals slope 1/2. Intercept is 4. F-O-R-M. Alright, standard form is ax plus by equals c, so we get the x and y together. So if I subtract 1/2 x on both sides, we get -1/2 x plus y equals 4. We are in standard. And as a bonus, point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. You know what? I actually want to use this point here because they're both positive numbers. That is the point 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 5. So y minus the y value equals slope x minus the x value. And there's your answer in point-slope form. Well, I don't know, there's not much else to say about that. All right. I think this is the last question. Application. It says, in class, the students were asked to write the question, or write the equation of the line going through the points 4, 3, and -1, -7 in all three forms. Two students did it two different ways. I guess find out which, if any students, did the problem correctly. Then fix the mistakes of the students who did the problem wrong. And for you folks out there who only do two forms, just do two forms. So here's what Morgan did. So here's her finding slope. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 and all that stuff. And you have this on your paper. You have all this there. And here is what Jack did. See, they both got different slopes. Interesting. So what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video right now and determine who was right and who was wrong. Once you find out who was right and who was wrong, the question asks you to fix the mistakes of the person who was wrong. You don't have to fix the mistake the whole way through the problem. Just find out where their first mistake was and fix that and assume that person can fix the rest of the mistake, okay? So pause the video, look through these two students' works, find out who was right and who was wrong, fix the mistake of the person who was wrong. When you're ready to continue, hit play, and we'll go through it together. Alright, so I said a second ago that they had different slopes. That definitely can't be right. There's no way they should have given two different slopes for the same 2 points. So right there, that's where the mistake's going to be. For one of them is going to be in the slope. And honestly, that's what I find as a teacher. I find most students make their mistake finding the slope. A lot of times it's a sign mistake. A lot of times it's just putting the numbers in the wrong place in the formula, putting the formula upside down, all kinds of weird things. But most mistakes I find in these problems come with finding the slope. So let's see who found the slope wrong or right. So here's Morgan. So she has her formula, looks good. Let's plug it in. So this would be x1, y1, x2, y2. Alright, so she plugged in the x2 value, which is -1, minus x1 over y1 minus y2. Yee. Well, I can tell you that's not going to work out so well for you. I mean, look, this is how she should have plugged her numbers in, putting the y2 value on the top left, the first one. She didn't. She put in an x value. So right there, her formula is going to be wrong. From the very first thing she wrote down, her formula is wrong. Be careful you don't make that same mistake, please, folks. If you write down your formula and you label all your stuff properly, just plug everything in right where it tells you to go. So it should be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So y2 should be -7 minus the y1 value is 3 over x2 is -1, x1 is 4. And if we simplify, -7 minus 3 is -10. -1 minus 4 is -5. And if we simplify and simplify and simplify a couple times, we get an answer of 2. So if Morgan would have found her slope correctly, she would have got a slope of 2. And actually, I'm just taking a quick look through the rest of her work. Yeah, the rest of her work would have been correct if she had the right slope. But Morgan found the wrong slope, and that made the whole rest of her problem wrong, because now the slope's wrong here, and it's wrong there, and that makes this number wrong, which makes this number wrong, and now both this and that are wrong, which makes this number over here wrong, and that number wrong. So that one mistake of slope made every single other step in her problem wrong. Please be careful with slope. Please take your time with slope. One mistake can ruin everything. So correct slope is 2. How did Mr. Jack do? Well, he found a slope of 2. Although he didn't do it as y2 minus y1. He had the right formula here, but look at this. If I plug this in here, we have x1, y1, x2, y2. This is y1, y2, x1, x2. But he somehow still got the right answer. The reasoning is, this is actually still allowed. You can take y1 minus y2 and then x1 minus x2, as long as you're consistent. If you do the first point minus the second point, or the second point minus the first point, you should still get the same answer. Me personally, I wouldn't try this because it's a way to make some mistakes. But he had the right slope. His method was slightly flawed. I mean, he didn't follow the formula, but his math was not wrong. So he has good, correct math, and that's why he has a correct slope. And if you follow through the rest of the problem, everything should be okay, I would assume. I mean, he plugged in here. He plugged in a point. Did he plug in points correctly? -7, -1. I'm looking at this point here. Yep. So -7 there, -1 there. He multiplied. Good. Add 2 to both sides. Yep. So that's correct. That was a horrible circle. There we go. And he plugged in his slope and his intercept correct, so that's good. And then he would subtract 2x to both sides, so that's good, and that's good. Yeah, Jack is correct, and Morgan was wrong. Summary. It's a type 2. So on your college writing page, make sure you take your time and answer correctly, because it'll be graded for your correctness of your response. And it says, when writing the equation of a line, why is it important to find the slope first? That should be easy. Talked about that in detail. So go ahead, pause the video if you need the question a little bit longer. If not, this has been lesson 4.9. Thanks for watching.